introduction to one of my favorite people on earth, Mr. Stephen Oliver, who is with the Advisor Marketing Podcast. Now, Stephen is a true maverick, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Not only in our business, but I have to tell you, his clients universally love him, and they grow at rates that they wouldn't believe it's possible. Now, on this podcast, in each episode, Stephen is joined by various members of his team or special guests to share insider secrets to rapid growth and high net profits in your financial advisory practice. So I just want you to know you're in for a wild ride, new information, and a lot of exciting new future because of Stephen Oliver. Hi, everybody. It is Lee Milteer, your host since 2003 for Millionaire Smarts. Our focus this month is reinvention and upgrades for you and your business. This is a very, very important topic. Since last year has been so super challenging for many people. Some businesses closed, some shifted, some prevailed, some business prospered and had their best years ever. And then, of course, there's everything in between. Today, we're going to increase your business to think differently about going forward, how to grow your business. And I'm very, very honored to have two experts who I adore, who are both coaches, who are in the entrepreneurial business, so they know what they're talking about. I've known both of these people and worked with them personally for many years. And I'm going to first introduce the gal in red, who's got red on like me today, Diane Conklin. And then I'm going to introduce our second guest, Mr. Rob Anspach. And just so you don't know Diane or Rob, these are people you should pay attention to. So Diane is an internationally known author, entrepreneur, coach, consultant, marketing strategist, implementation specialist, speaker, and copywriter. She is also a direct response marketing expert. She's the founder of Complete Marketing Systems, and she's had that for over 30 years, basically showing entrepreneurs and business owners how to outperform their competition by measuring their marketing and strategy using multimedia campaigns to stand alone in their marketplace. And Diane specializes in helping businesses grow to the next level and beyond. She's a very effective and dynamic speaker. I've been on the stage with her many times, and she has shared the stage with many, many people. I'm just going to mention a few. Barbara Conklin, Joan Rivers, George Foreman, Dan Kennedy, Bill Glazer, Harry Dent, and other people that you would know. A sincerely important award you should pay attention to that Diane received. She was voted the Glazer Kennedy Marketing of the Year expert for her innovative marketing strategies and campaigns. And let me tell you, this is a tough thing to win, so pay attention. She was also nominated recently for the Atlanta Businesswoman of the Year. She is also one of our most treasured faculty experts for Millionaire Smarts, and I can attest to the fact that she is most effective in showing business owners how to turn their business into money-making machines. And on a personal note, she's one of the smartest and funniest women I know. And speaking of funny, or we might even say sarcastic, our next guest today is Rob Osh. Spock. I love Rob. Rob actually helped me get up a website a couple of years ago. He's a great guy. He's affectionately known as Mr. Sarcasm to his friends, to everyone else. He's a certified digital marketing strategist, a foremost expert on specialized SEO. He is a best-selling author, podcaster, speaker, and authority broadcaster who can help amplify your audience. He has authored, co-authored, and produced over, ready? 30 books covering social media, search engine optimization, podcasting, copywriting, personal injury law, weight loss, military law, life lessons, scams, customer service, and more. His clients include lawyers, speakers, doctors, real estate professionals, and more. And I've had the honor of being one of his guests on his eHero interview series. Now, he works in inside corporations across the globe, helping companies generate new revenue and capture online businesses. So, welcome, Rob and Diane. I'm so happy to see both of you.
Thanks, Lee. It's happy to be
Glad
here.
to be here.
Okay, so one of the reasons I want you two together is because one, you're both very funny and sarcastic, and you're very direct and to the point. I really like that. Millionaire Smarts really likes that. So since, so much has gone on the last year, people are dragging around, there are people who are very like too chipper, and then there are people who are like just down and out, can't see the light for, anything. So let's talk about your own mindsets. And I'll start with you, Diane. What are you doing every day that keeps your attitude, your mindset, really geared up to meet the challenges that we're dealing with?
Yeah, it's interesting because for me, it doesn't change a lot. It's the consistency, right? I'm a creature of habit, so I like the routine. But I start every morning with a meditation / prayer, depending on whatever word you want to use. Some quiet time, I guess, is the big thing, and then do a little bit of journaling. But I think for me, the key is continuing to be around the right people, to continue to work out, to continue to eat well. And then I finish my day every day. I've done this for years. I read for at least 30 minutes, sometimes 45, and then I journal. And the last thing that I do before I go to bed in the journal is I make myself come up with 5 things I'm grateful for. And look, sometimes it's that I have a nice pen to write with, right? I mean, I'm human like everybody else, but it's that piece of continuing to do that. And then I think the other piece for me is staying away from the news. I don't watch the news. That doesn't mean I'm not informed, doesn't mean I'm not research and study and that kind of thing. But for me, it's that piece of maintaining my peace and doing whatever it takes to do that.
So, Rob, what are you doing every day? I mean, you're as human as everybody else. You have challenges in your family and things like that. So, how do you keep yourself, in tip-top mental condition?
Sometimes I don't, honestly. We want to be chipper. We want to be positive, and the pandemic really kind of made a lot of entrepreneurs rethink their daily routine, and I'm one of them. I like to be sarcastic to people. The problem is that when you're not interacting with people or not seeing people on a daily basis, it starts to drive you a little batty. So, I'm with Diane. I turned off the news. I don't even look at the news until at least lunchtime. I want my brain to be functioning at the tip-top shape when I get out of bed. I got all these brilliant ideas. I want to write them down. And, I keep pads and pads of paper with me at all times. So I'm jotting down my notes. Is this idea something that's viable that I can push forward? But I have kids and grandkids, and I like to spend time with them. So every morning I'm interacting with them before I get to work, because I like to see that joy, that happiness, because they don't care about what's going on in the world. So
good for them.
And then
I envy that.
Yeah. And then we as adults, we look at that going, oh no, I got a car payment or a mortgage payment, or I got all this stuff, which really has nothing to do with, it shouldn't bring us down, but it does. And I just like to make people laugh. And I didn't really used to do that. When I started this business, when I started being a consultant, I wanted to be on that fine path where I pleased everybody. And you just can't do that. And sarcasm was my way of bringing a smile, not only to me, but to others. But it also acts as a way to repel people that really don't have a business dealing with me. If they don't get sarcasm, they're not going to want to hire me, because the relationship's just not going to be there.
I so appreciate both what you have said. So, Rob, I don't remember exactly what I posted on Facebook, which I call many other names, which I won't say here, but social media. And I think I was talking about, the problem of depression and how people are dealing with that. And you actually surprised me by answering that you had experienced that. And I was actually incredibly impressed because there's so many fake people in the world today, pretending to be things that they're not. And I will admit, I mean, the past year, I mean, I've had to do some real motivational talks to myself and deal with my own reality of how am I dealing with all this upheaval, and nobody can see around the corner. Nobody's crystal ball is working very well, and it's natural that we're all. I'm an introvert, so I actually gather energy by, being alone, but there's enough, sometimes there's too much of being alone, and we're all dealing with that. And so I just thought it would be great to have two really authentic business coaches on today for Millionaire Smarts, because they are authentic. They show you their warts and all. And this is the kind of people we need to talk to, not those rah rah, no matter what, kind of people. I mean, yes, that's true. No matter what, we're going to put one step in front of the others, but there's a lot of bad advice going on out in the world. And so I just think that keeping your mindset clear and having hope for the future and doing the things that nurture you. I love that example of, when you're on the plane, the flight attendants say, put on your oxygen mask before you do anybody else. There's some real truth there. If we don't take care of ourselves, we're going to miss opportunities. We're going to miss money paths. We're going to miss things. And a lot of us are rescuers, that we take care of other people before we take care of ourselves. And all three of us could raise our hand on that one. And we've been rescuers to our own detriment. And so what we want to be is our own advocates. So let's first talk about, and each one of you have very different thoughts about this, but a word Diane and I, when we were talking about doing this interview, she said, if I hear the word pivot one more time, I might, I, I won't say what she said, but she's just like, there's other things we need to be doing. So Diane, I'm going to let you start with that thought process, because we've got to do more than pivot.
Truly. I mean, think about, and this is my thing, right? The word pivot, go look up go in the dictionary and look up the word, right? What does it mean? When you pivot, you stay within a certain radius of where you currently are, right? So in basketball, I'm a big sports fan. So if you're not, I apologize. Well, I'm not apologizing, but whatever. It is what it is. But think about pivoting in basketball. You keep one foot in one place and you're moving the rest of your body in 3 feet, 6 feet? You've got a 6 feet radius. Well, in business and in life, let's face it, that doesn't always work. And certainly in the times we're in now, look, it doesn't matter if you listen to this now, a year from now, or 5 years from now, things are going to be changing. It's inevitable. No matter what happens in our life, there's change. And you've got to figure out a way, not only as a business owner, but as a person, how do you adapt and use the change for good, for yourself, for your business, for your clients? You don't do that many times by pivoting. Sometimes you get lucky and you can take the fork in the road. And sometimes you've got to completely change and go to the right. You've got to veer completely back this way. And so my thing with the word pivot is, for most people right now, it's not enough. I've got a client that started 2 new businesses in 30 days, not because he wanted to, because he was forced to in order to stay in business. And so this idea of, well, I can just make this little shift. I can just make this little pivot. Maybe you can, but for most people, it's a shift. It's not a pivot, which is completely different in my mind. And so I think, to your point, Lee, there are so many people that are teaching, oh, well, make this little pivot, make this little shift. No, I want people to think about, what's the big move that you have to make? Because if you're not willing to make the big move, maybe it's time to look at what should you be doing. And I know that sounds in some ways harsh or direct or to the point, but it's real. If you're not willing to make the big shift, if you're not willing to change your focus and do something, I'm not saying go from being a plumber to a dog groomer, right? But what I am saying is maybe you've got to move your plumbing to a more educational online. Maybe you've got to, there are things that you've got to look at and ways that you have to think of, changing your paradigm. And that's hard for people, but it's necessary.
Absolutely. So, Rob, what do you think about the pivoting word?
I dislike it. For me, my life was never a pivot. It was always a 180. I mean, in the past, some of you may know, but in the past, I owned a carpet cleaning business, and I had that for almost 20 years. And you're going, how do you go from carpet cleaning to consultant to book publisher? And I mean, that's a complete 180. That's not a pivot by no means. And so I think that pivoting, no, most people are never going to be a pivot the way that they think they're going to. Most people are going to do a complete 180 or even more than that. And I through this whole last year, I saw a lot of companies, they were doing things that they never done before. It wasn't a pivot. It was something out of sheer desperation that they said, hey, I got to keep my employees busy. I got to do this. I got to do that. We're gonna add a new line. We're gonna, and it was, some of these companies were doing some drastic things just so that they didn't have to lay off their people. And that was, to me, that was awesome. But, as Diane said, you can't just pivot and think that, 3 feet, 6 feet is going to be the difference in making your business better. It's not.
I agree with both of you. So I know personally, I've spent a lot of internal time thinking about, what my education is, what my experience is, where my wheelhouse is, what can I do, what I don't want to do. I think one of the first things I would recommend everyone to do as they're thinking about because we're really talking about reinventing yourself. Reinventing yourself in the future is to make a really hard, strong list of what you love to do, what you want to do, and what you're willing to do. Because I'm dealing with clients, and I'd like to hear from both of you, who are sometimes just reacting to reality, and instead of asking themselves the important question of, what is it I really want to do, they're just plunging into wherever they think money might be. It's a reaction versus being proactive. And so what I've been doing is really an inventory of, you know, and going into the future, knowing what I know, which is a lot, what do I want to do that I could capitalize and leverage on? It's Lee Milteer, and I'm delighted to interrupt you today and let you know that I've been working with Stephen Oliver for 10 or 15 years now. He's a great guy. I love all the research that he does. And I just wanted to let you know that if you're enjoying the content on this podcast, then you really want to make time to visit advisorwealthmastery.com. And why should you do that? Well, because you're going to receive 2 of his great books and actually one of mine called Success is an Inside Job. You'll also get a lot of absolutely free material on growing your practice through effective marketing. So again, take the time to go to advisorwealthmastery.com. And so I'd like to hear from both of you about some of the things that your clients and you are doing in capitalizing and leveraging on their skill sets.
Before I answer that, I think that one of the points that's important to make here is that this isn't new. If you're not reinventing yourself in your business and in your life over and over and over again, whether there's things happening in the world or not, you're pretty soon going to be what I call OOB, out of business. So I think it's something that's more forefront right now and more people are talking about. But I want to encourage people that you need to constantly be doing these things and looking at, is this working, and why is this working, and why is this not working, and is it going to work in a year? What's happening in the world that might change, where I am today? And I think for me and for my clients, I started 6 months before anybody else was talking about this, saying, look, this thing is coming. Because let's face it, there was no magic bubble around the United States, right? Or around where we live. There's not some magic that's going to keep us from being affected by these things. And so one is being proactive, like you just said, Lee, and looking at the other pieces. For me, I do a lot of work with my clients and looking at graphs, right? And what's happened in the world in the last 50 or 100 years. And most of the time, if you take the graphs of the economical graphs of where we are and where we've been, they would go pretty close. So are we is it going to be an uptick? Are we in the middle, coming down? Are we in this? So looking at those things helps a lot. But and I think that's it. I think it's being proactive and not reacting in, oh my gosh, this happened. Now what do I do? Well, now it's too late. You should have been making plans for this. And I know the P word, right? That's a word that most entrepreneurs don't like, that plan word. But you've got to look ahead. You have to. You've got to look at the trends in your business. And I talk a lot about, most people have a business that looks like a roller coaster, right? Instead of what I call steady state. It's a roller coaster because you're not looking at the trends. Well, if you know that there's a September slump, for example, well, then in June and July of this year, you need to be looking at, how do I not have a slump this year in September? Because just because it's what happens in your industry, and I'm putting that in air quotes, right? It doesn't mean it has to happen in your business. And so, I think for my clients, because we've been talking about this for so long and because we were so proactive, a lot of them are having the best years that they've ever had, and they're doing it quietly because, they don't want to say too much because they don't want people to, feel bad or to bash them or whatever. I've got a client in the travel business who went from a $50 million travel business down to almost zero, who surprisingly enough bought another travel business in the middle of all this.
Wow.
And just had her best month that she's had in 2 years last month because things are starting to come back. But she was proactive in saying, this is what I know, this is what I love, and I can now do this instead of in a global format, on a local format, because she lives somewhere where tourists come and it's a destination city. Very smart move on her part when most people are going, what are you doing?
Yeah, I like that. I believe that entrepreneurs all always have to be asking themselves, what are the trends? What are the trends I can capitalize on and leverage right now? Because you're right, once they're there, too many people have jumped on the bandwagon, or you don't have enough traction at that point to actually even get noticed.
Yeah, what are you doing now and what are you doing next? That's the question people don't ask. I know what I'm doing now. What am I going to do next?
Yes. So, Rob, what about you?
We talk about leveraging, but a lot of entrepreneurs don't even leverage their own strengths. They look at what other people are doing, or they chase after the shiny objects that are out there, and we all know them. We've all fallen for them, and then we hope those shiny objects make us money, and when they don't, we go look for the next shiny object. But if you just look at your own strengths and weaknesses and say, well, for me it was sarcasm, but it's like, okay, well, how can I make money on sarcasm? Well, I write books about it now. And those books now actually make more money than the other books do, because they make people laugh. And at the same time, they're calling me up and say, hey, Rob, I need help. I need help with the website, or I need help with SEO. So sometimes it's not about the direct approach. Sometimes it's about making someone laugh. Now they're remembering you and calling you. So to me, it's not about the shiny object. It's about, how can I capitalize on my strength, and how can people see that?
Absolutely. So tell us maybe if you can off the top of your head, like some of your clients, how have you helped them leverage their own skills and wheelhouse talents?
A lot of my clients are lawyers, and not to say that lawyers aren't smart. They are very smart, but they've all gone to the Vulcan School of No Emotion.
Hmm.
And so, I try to make them more human in the eyes of their clients so that, when they go to the website or they go to their social media, they see someone that they can trust, that has a sense of humor, that has, you know, that's not speaking kind of legalese that nobody can understand. So, for me, that the whole shift of getting that person to kind of tone down their image a little bit to be more human is the way to connect.
So now that you say that, all of us know Ben Glass, who is a
Mhm.
very smart lawyer and used to be a sponsor of Millionaire Smarts here. And I spoke at one of his events one time, and in a group, he actually said, for all of you lawyers out there, when you meet people, don't just start off with you're a lawyer. He said, who cares? Boring. He said, I start off with that, I have like a bazillion kids, and I'm a coach for all of them and all the dogs that we foster and all that kind of thing. And he said, the ears perk up. Then I can say I'm a lawyer. Now I've made an impression. He's the first lawyer I have ever known to actually make that kind of distinction. So, I think I know because Rob, you help people publish books about themselves. I think that advice is extremely good for all of us. Um, and this is the next question I have. I think all rules are gone. I
Mhm.
mean, pretty much just fried, gone. You know, Anything that we thought we were supposed to be and do and say is now boring, isn't it? Is it just boring? I mean, I think people are just overwhelmed with life and they need something that kind of makes their eyes sparkle and you kind of stand out a little bit. So share with us, both of you, how you're breaking the rules. Okay,
You
this
know,
should be good.
well, I mean, look, my whole life is breaking the rules. If we want to get down to the nitty gritty of who Diane is and the way I live my life. And look, I am who I am, and I'm not for everybody, and I get that. I use a lot of tough love, and I don't apologize for doing that because sometimes that's just what people need. And sometimes in my sessions these come out. Um, and I have to be okay with that because it's all about if I'm doing something that's helping somebody move forward, then I'm building the relationship. And I think that's the thing that's missing for a lot of people right now is everybody's trying to do things in this automated way. Well, you know what? How about we do this? And I know, look, this has a cord. So yes, but pick up the
We,
phone,
she's
right?
yeah, she's talking about phone. Now, everybody won't see this, so we have to remember
Right.
their
So
audio.
I do have a cell phone as well, but it's this piece of I don't do things that aren't me, right? I'm not in somebody's face and I'm not putting on an air, just like Rob, right? That piece of him that plays with the sarcasm, that's just him. And I think the more you are who you are, and it's hard sometimes because we've all learned not to be vulnerable and to, well, Diane, don't be so loud or don't be so whatever. Well, you know what? This is it. This is me. And look, it's taken me 57 years to get to that point. But to the point of, do you lose a client once in a while? Yeah, you probably do. And you have to be okay with that. And that's a hard place, I think, for people to get to because we hold on. Oh my gosh, what if I tell people my target market is women and some man wants to work with me? Well, he will. We live in this world of oh my gosh of lack instead of this plenty attitude of if he resonates with you and even if you're working with women he's still going to come. So I think for me it's just being who I am and finally being comfortable and saying or being that and letting people make their own decision about You like me, you don't like me, you want to work with me, you don't want to work with me, it resonates, whatever. But this is it. This is all I got, So if that's breaking the rules, then I'm breaking the rules.
Absolutely. So Rob, we know you break the rules, so which is
Just a little
fun.
bit, yeah. I find that common sense is really has gone out the window a long time ago, and people expect so much, and they'll say, well, Rob, I want to hire you, but then I want you to do all this stuff the way I want you to do it. Why are you hiring me then? The reason you're hiring me is because I'm going to do things differently. They don't understand. But I think the biggest thing for most people is, and I don't know where this came from, but they'll say, well, okay, Rob, send me an invoice and we'll pay in 90 days. No, I'll send you an invoice, you pay me today and we'll get started. And they're like, well, that's not how we operate. Well, that's how I operate. And you want to operate with, you want to work with me, then you work with my terms. When did entrepreneurs become the people that just take orders? No, that's not how it works. We as entrepreneurs are the rule breakers. So, when I take on a client, I tell them, these are the rules. You want to play my game? Okay, you don't? Go somewhere else. To me, we're all about being, we're all about making money. We're all about, creating this freedom, but there's no freedom if we're going to listen to the rules that someone already created.
I love this because if we did all the things that, say, the corporations did, or we operated and our rules were like that, we would be a commodity. We would be just like everybody else. And, I feel very grateful that I live in the entrepreneurial world because I have to pretend to be someone else in the corporate world. Like, I have to pretend that I'm going to follow the rules, which I'm not. I have to apologize because I'm not going to ask for permission. And so I just think in today's world about reinventing yourself, um, the story you tell about yourself is so important. It really helps people resonate with you. So let's talk about that a little bit, about how, the stories we tell, the world affect our business. For me, I will just say the stories I tell attract business to me because there's something in my story that resonates and is in alignment in their belief system with other people. I started off by saying, I'd done this program since 2003. The number of people who told me that when I first started this, he said, oh, that's going to last 2 or 3 years. And I said, have you met me? That is going to, no, this is going to last years and years and years because I have found this sweet spot in life to do what I love and I'm talented in. I get to read fabulous books and interview fabulous people. This makes me the happiest woman on earth. And the other stuff, the bookkeeping and, the million other, tech stuff, which, Rob, thank you so much for. And, Diane, the marketing stuff, you are the experts in that. I've got, I can outsource things so I can stay in a place that I enjoy, which of course allows me to be more creative and which of course allows me to see trends and to follow the money easier because my brain is happy.
Yeah. It's interesting you ask about the story because I think what happens for a lot of us, I often say to people, tell things that are personal but not private, right? And so that's kind of my distinction with, well, what do I tell, Diane? Well, as long as it's not private, you may or may not have ever heard me talk about this because I don't talk about it a lot, but I tend to do it inside of my circle, my inner circle, right? Is I tell the story of my brother, my older brother, who was run over and killed in front of our house at the age of 5. I was 3.5. And I tell that story. And when I tell the story, I don't tell it for the effect of, oh my gosh, Diane's been through this amazing thing. I tell it because it gives people perspective about who I am now. And when I tell the story, as vulnerable as it was the first few times, and as hard as it was, there's always somebody in the room who relates to it, who has lost a child, who's lost a sibling, who had a traumatic thing like that happen. And so what it does, and again, I don't do it for the effect, I just do it as a reference, but it creates a bond that you don't know that's there. And if you don't continue to tell your story and to share these aspects of your story that make you maybe a little uncomfortable, you never get that connection with people. You never find that place of, and you never have the realization of, oh my God, I'm not the only one. And there's some, and they get the same realization in the room of, wow, look where this person, not necessarily me, look where this person is in their life and in their business, and they went through this. I can do it too, despite the things I've been through, or because of the things that I've been through. So I think that's the importance of the story piece that we sometimes leave behind.
Yes, I think that's fantastic advice. How about you, Rob?
You know, I think sharing our stories is the most important things we can do. You know, I've had people come to me and say, well, Rob, why do you tell people that you were a former carpet cleaner? Because you don't do that now. And now you write books and you coach. The two have nothing to do with each other. And I said, yeah, but without me being an entrepreneur in the cleaning field, I would have never learned how to do a lot of the things that I'm doing now to teach people, you know, how to be better marketers, how to be better authors, how to tell their story. So a lot of times the things that we experience in our past are great stories that we can showcase to others to help them be better at what they do. And good or bad, those stories can help bond you with somebody else. And they're going to see that relevance and they're going to say, wow, you know, I didn't know. Or, you know, you're just like me. Or, you know, whatever the thing is, you know, they're going to feel that they can trust you just a little bit more.
3 years ago, I finished my book, Reclaim the Magic. And while I was working on it, I had hired an editor who had worked on another book and had done a phenomenal job. And so, as she was editing Reclaim the Magic, she called me up one day and she said, you have to get rid of chapter 2. And I said, what? Um, and she said, chapter 2 is very depressing. It's, you know, it's about all the trauma of your childhood and it's just so depressing. And I said, I don't think you, I don't think we can work together anymore because if I take out chapter 2, there's nothing unique about that book that somebody hasn't taught someplace at some time. That without that traumatic childhood survival, I wouldn't be the person I am today, which wouldn't set the book up properly. So anyway, we parted ways, and she's still a great person. But you know, I'm now at this point in my life that when I get pushback on things that I know to be authentically true, I just know that you know we have completed our time together in our working relationship, and I need to find someone who can support the vision and direction that I'm going into. So this brings me into my next topic with I am finding that it's in this world, it's time to release a lot of things. I just sold my commercial office building I had bought 16 years ago. And the entire reason I bought this building was a long term investment. But then when the state of Virginia decided that they weren't going to allow anybody to kick out any tenants, this made, you know, this revamped in my mind. I had to reinvent this dream of mine. And I'll just tell this really shortly. When I put it up for sale, I had done my research. I used to be in commercial real estate. I understand the gig. I actually had people call me and say that I was delusionary and misinformed about the price I put on the building. which upset me for a couple of days until I got mad and said, well, okay, I'm going to raise the price $25,000 on the building. And I did. I sold the building in 2 weeks after that. And I paid no commission on any side. Instead of getting other realtors, I actually hired a guy who was a expert real estate guy. I just hired him as a consultant. So I paid him like 3 grand instead of the 30 grand for the commission. So I'm telling this story because we have to reinvent rules of the way that we do things. We have to reinvent our tolerance for people's advice that we will take, because there are a lot of people stuck in their paradigm, using the word Diane used earlier. And so I want you both to share how you have you're rejecting the norms and you're reinventing the way that you're doing things.
Well, for me, when you started that story, the thing that came up is somebody's always going to say, you can't do that. Or you can't do that way. Really? Why not? Right? And so when somebody says, you can't do that, right? Or that doesn't make sense. Okay, wait. Look, I always take a step back and say, okay, let's look at it. Can I really not do this? Is this really not making sense? Should I really not buy that travel business right now? Right? It's that piece of taking the objective, but it's also the piece of listening to your intuition, of doing your research, of that place. We all have a place of what I call knowing. I just did this. I just made a big investment in a new coaching program. And there was the piece of me that was that little doubting Thomas, right? That was like on my shoulder. But then when I got quiet, I said, okay, what is my place of knowing? And that's just what I call it. Maybe it's your gut, maybe it's your whatever, right? Your heart, whatever, but your intuition. I said, what does that place of my knowing say? And I got my answer, right? And it was, yes, you need to do this. It's the right time for a lot of different reasons, blah, blah, blah. And so it's, again, that piece of stop reacting and start responding. Give yourself time. You don't have to make the decision in this very moment, but when somebody says you can't do that, it's probably a good idea that maybe it is a good idea. Maybe it is the very thing that you should be doing. You can't do that comes from a lot of different places. And a lot of times it comes from the place of, I don't understand, or I wish I had come up with that idea, or because I don't understand, I want to protect you. And that's where that comes from, right? People aren't being facetious. They're not being ugly. They're trying to protect us from getting hurt. And I think when we realize that as entrepreneurs, we're willing to take more risks than probably most of the people in our lives. And so I think for me, that's the place of looking at what is the answer and where does that answer come from?
Very well said. Thank you. How about you, Rob?
Well, in 2013, I was told I can't write a book about social media. And then when I wrote the book, publishers were like, well, no, that's just too simple. It'll never sell. And I said, fine, I'm going to start my own publishing company and I will publish it and get it out there. And immediately the book sold 2,000 copies right away. And I was like, this is great. And then from that point on, everybody was like, hey, Rob, help me with my book. Help me do this and do that. And then it got to the point where I wanted to transition and write different books. And when I wrote the Rob versus the Scammers book, I sent it out to a friend of mine and he said, Rob, I don't get it. It's just a collection of stories. It's not really a book. I published it anyway and people loved it. So the series continued. And so, yeah, every time someone says I can't do something, I prove it that I can and I make money doing it. So I think I think every entrepreneur should do that, but not everybody is like me or Diane. Or you.
So no, this is so important, Rob. But both of you have said such important things. It's like when we get in a gut feeling and intuition, being called to whatever you want to call it, something really out of other people's view. and we do it anyway, then both of you said other people were attracted to you. So, all of us hang around in the marketing world, and, sometimes it gets very boring because one person will come up with a good idea, and it's like the sheep all follow that one person till it's absolutely dead in the water because they've overused it so much. And then there's the person that comes up with the unique thing, but that's the greatest magnetic attractor ever, because people are always seeking the unusual. So everybody listening today, pay a lot of attention to this. Your clients, customers, and patients are looking for innovations from you. They're looking for you to be the visionary on figuring out products and services that will assist them. So, Diane, one of the things I really like about you is you have just said, the hell with everybody. I'm having an event, and you're marketing your event, and you do a fabulous job of it. And there's so many people saying, oh, you can't have live events because of all the things happening. But you're just saying, I'm having an event because I have something new to say and I have more information to share. And Rob, you're writing books because you realize not only did you enjoy it, but because people are actually attracted to it. And since I'm on I've been holding these up, realizing nobody can see them because you're on the camera. This one is called Rob versus Morons, and it's hilarious. And share, and I've got a bunch of your books, but the message we're sharing today is let's reinvent and give ourselves permission to play full out. All of your creativity. We're taking risk anyway. Why not just really do that risk on ourselves? I saw in a magazine a couple of days ago, and I jokingly said to my husband, another invention I thought of 5 years ago that somebody has brought to market. Now, it was when I actually have all these thoughts and these inventions, I really have to analyze with the bandwidth that I have, do I actually have time to bring some of these inventions to marketplace? And because I'm not in that retail world, I often choose to go, well, someone will think of it. I will buy it in the future from someone else. But I also have things about myself that I want to invent. And I'm just encouraging everybody to wake up in the morning and ask the important question, how can I reinvent myself today to make more money, to have more fun, and to make more of an impact in the world? That really is our goal, right?
Yeah. And Lee, I think the other piece of this that's important to mention is, the three of us have been in business for a long time, right? 20 plus years, all three of us. And so you get this idea that, we're out there, we're doing all this stuff, and, to use, these aren't words that I use, but we're crushing it and we're killing it and we're ramming it, we're going and we're doing all the time and we're hustling. And while that's true, I think the thing to remember is if that's not your personality and that's not a comfort thing for you, I got this advice from somebody years ago and I thought it was really great advice. Instead of thinking that you've got to slam through the wall, right? You've got to open the door and rush through it. How about just lean into it? Take one step at a time, right? It's okay not to go, wow. I mean, the three of us are pretty dynamic. We've been in this like fun mode or we're doing all this stuff, but lean into something. Take one simple step because that's the beginning. And then I think the other piece is don't quit. That doesn't mean don't shift. It doesn't mean don't take a different path. But for me, the reason I'm in business 30 years down the road is very simple. I have never drawn the proverbial line in the sand and said, if this doesn't happen by this date, or if I don't make this much money at this time, I'm quitting or I'm going to go get a job. Now I think about getting a job at least once a year, and then I wake up the next morning and laugh and sit at my desk. But I've never done that because my fear is if I draw that line in the sand, what if tomorrow was my day? What if the next email was the thing that created this huge thing for me. And so I just want to give that different perspective, that my way or Lee's way or Rob's way isn't necessarily right for you, but find what's right for you. And if opening the door and rushing in and running a marathon doesn't work, then lean in and walk a 5K.
And you brought up something really important of, that sometimes entrepreneurs think about, well, I know people who say, I envy people with jobs because at 5 o'clock they can have a life. None of us are wired like that. And it's just urgent that we start creating, inventing a life that actually serves us, that we're just not, rushing from the latest trend of marketing or copywriting or funnels or, all the things that are happening. It's just impossible to keep up with all that. I am unemployable. I'm pretty clear about that. All three of us are unemployable, and most of the people listening are unemployable. We have to be self-employed. So I would never last a day on a job because, I'm me. So let's talk about just breaking out of our molds. So what gives you the courage every morning to just keep going no matter what's happening?
It's not about me. It's about the people at the other end. It's about the impact that I make. It's about my responsibility to them. So I have a little thing on my desk that says making a living while making a difference. And it probably should say making a difference while making a living. You could do it either way, but to me, that's what it's about. And I've always said, if I can make a real impact in just one person's life, I know I've done that. And yet there's still that piece of there's one more person. And for me, I think it's the ripple, right? It's the effect of, I say something today that one of the people listening hears, and they share with somebody and share with somebody. And all of a sudden, my one comment has affected, this is going to sound dramatic, but potentially 1 million people, right? I look at the clients that I've helped, and, I think about their kids, and now got a guy that's got 50 people on his staff now, when it was just him when we worked together 10 years ago. And it's like, look at the effect that that's had. And so for me, that's what it's about. It's not about a new car. It's not about the biggest diamond ring. It's not about any of that. It's about the people and the effect that I get to have on their businesses and their lives, which is way more important to me.
Excellent. Okay, you, Rob?
My whole goal is to help people uncomplicate their life and make it as stupidly simple as possible. Because honestly, we've as entrepreneurs, we've burdened ourselves with so many rules that we think that we need funnels and websites and phones and whatnot. I think sometimes we lose sight of all that, and we just need to make it as simple as possible.
So you're very consistent, Rob. So when we were working on my website, this is the phrase that you use to me all the time. You kept saying, Lee, your website is so complicated. Can we make it simple? Don't you want to have an easier life? Do you really want all these headaches? And you were like a voice in the wilderness, because everybody else was like, oh, it's got to be automated to do this, and it's got to have autoresponders, and it's got to have, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't keep up with all that stuff.
Yeah.
And my clients are either very simple people or just very happy with the simplicity. But you're right. I think having a simple approach to things, makes our life easy and the people that we're influencing easier. I will tell you that I wake up every morning not only wanting to be of service to everybody, but also I love the adventure. I am an adventure person, and my life has had many phases. I've done many things. I've had, as Bill Glazer would always say, in my many past lives, the things that I have done. And I've been a rock and roll disc jockey. I've been a professional photographer. I've been a model. I've been, so many things. And if we were in the corporate world, well, people would be mortified, like, well, you didn't pick a profession and stick to it. Well, because that's not an adventure. I love the adventure of all of it. And being with Millionaire Smarts has just been a great adventure because of since 2003, getting to speak to a different expert every month since 2003. I learn, to be honest, more than anybody else because I'm so excited about knowledge. So before we leave today, we only have a few minutes, but there was a topic I really wanted to talk about. There are people out there afraid to sell in this environment. And I find this bizarre because to me, selling is nothing but educating other people on matching services together. It's that we're doing them a favor to help educate them. So I would like to hear from both of you of how important it is that people ramp up their education of their products and services.
Well, it's vital. I mean, it's critical because if people don't know you're there, nobody's going to buy from you. And then again, to use my term I used earlier, you're going to be OOB, right? Out of business. And so I think for me, when I first started with sales, I had that same sort of, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And so it's about solving a challenge or a problem that somebody else has. And if I can solve that problem, and I honestly can, and I believe that I'm the best person to do it, then why would I not offer them that? And that's what it is for me. It's not about selling and pounding and all of the negative connotations that we have. It's not about manipulation. It's about matching what I do to their need or to their want, which is probably more to the point, right? Because most people buy what they want, not what they need. I mean, let's face it, that it's the truth. And so if I can match and help somebody solve a problem or solve a challenge that they have, then why would I not do that? If you're not doing that, if that's not how you're looking at it, if you think of this as manipulative and as ugly and dirty and all of that, then you're doing it the wrong way. You need to get some education on how to sell and how to make offers and, all of the things that go into that. But for me, that's what it's about.
Absolutely. So, Rob, I know you came from the carpet cleaning world originally, and I'm sure that you were very educated on how to sell.
No, not really, but I
Oh,
learned
really?
I learned very quickly. When I first started, I did what everybody else did and relied on newspapers and news magazines to design my ads, which looked just like everybody else's. And after 3 years, I almost went bankrupt, and that's when I started learning copywriting. That's when I started learning effective marketing, and marketing comes first and foremost. I don't care if you don't have a product yet. I don't care if you don't even have employees yet. You got to get that marketing out there. And what I noticed during all of 2020, when everybody was suffering, everybody relied on their accountants to tell them, oh, don't do marketing right now. That'll save you a lot of money. And those were the first companies that went bankrupt and went out of business.
Yep.
So that marketing needs to be consistent. It needs to be, on everything. I mean, Facebook, Google, everywhere you can put it, because everybody's turning in now with the technology. And if they're not seeing your marketing message, you're going to lose them. But
ABM, baby, ABM, always be marketing.
Yeah.
Well, and again, there are people who are terrified of selling. They're terrified of marketing. I always ask them to sort of go back in their life and who gave you this message? Who in your family was, criticizing someone who was selling something or marketing something, and then look at that person. I mean, how successful were they? Because those backseat drivers can really steer you into the wrong place if you're not careful. Well, folks, this has been fantastic. I really wanted to have a great just conversation with two extraordinary coaches who help other business owners from around the world. Both of you work with, phenomenal people. I get to work with phenomenal people. And our purpose today was to remind you, don't listen to the outside world, listen to your intuition. Also to remind yourself that, we have to reinvent, not pivot, reinvent. And Diane is giving us some articles that we're going to put on the Millionaire Smarts membership site, and Rob is also going to contribute to that also, and I'm going to contribute. And so we want to thank you so much for being with us. And our hope, and I'm going to let everybody say goodbye, but my hope for everybody is that you enjoyed the presentation enough today, and there were some real gems of wisdom in there for you. So Diane, your parting words?
I would just say have some fun. And you know what? Here's the other piece. If you don't like the marketing and sales part of it, then you know what? It's okay. Hire somebody who does. Don't force yourself into a box that you don't have to force yourself into. Hire somebody who likes it, who's good at it. And, it's a win-win-win that way. And so have some fun. Thank you, Lee, so much for the platform and the time. And certainly if anybody needs anything, I'm happy to help. So please reach out.
And tell us the website we can find you.
Sure. I'm at completemarketingsystems.com. That's the easiest way. And you can find me on social media under Diane Conklin or that, but completemarketingsystems.com is going to be the main website.
All right. So Rob, you start off with telling people how they can find you, and then your wrap up words.
Well, you can find me at anspachmedia.com. That's ANSPACH media.com. And if you don't like what you're doing, change your stars. Don't pivot, just change your stars.
Excellent. I like that. All right, thanks, folks. I've enjoyed this immensely. I look forward to it so much. You two are truly favorite people of mine. So thank you. And folks at Millionaire Smarts, so we're going to call it a wrap. We'll talk to you next month. Thank you. Stay tuned for some more exciting interviews.